welcome back to the BestWorst36 podcast. I'm your host, Josh Walebo. My next guest is a career coach, recruiter, and author of the Job Search Manifesto. With over a decade of leadership, he's held roles as a talent acquisition leader in Silicone Valley, and currently he coaches and assists with the Wharton Executive MBA program in San Francisco. A graduate of the Huston Institute of Coaching, he also holds a Bachelor of Science in Health Information Systems with an emphasis in psychology and nursing. You can find him at mikecoach.com, and we'll probably get some more information. Please welcome Mike Manoske. Am I saying your last name right?
You know, it's Manoske, but you were darn close.
Okay, Manoske.
You and I both understand what it's like having a unique last name, right?
Absolutely. People add all kinds of syllables and vowels to my last name, so I appreciate that, Mike.
Not a problem.
So, I appreciate you taking some time this afternoon to be with me and spend some time, although I guess it's the morning time where you're at in San Francisco.
Yeah, here in the West Coast, it's morning, but hey, great to connect. I mean, our first conversation was awesome. I'm looking forward to where we're going to go today.
Absolutely. Some things really popped up for me, but I'll start off with the typical kind of set up questions that I really want to learn about. If you can just tell the listeners a little bit more about what you're currently doing.
I am working really 3 years. I actually stepped away from the leadership role I've had, but my primary roles are that I'm a career and leadership coach at the Wharton Executive MBA program in San Francisco, and now also on main campus in Philadelphia. So I also co-lead a program called the Job Search Action Group, which is where our book started. It's a comprehensive program that I co-lead. The founder of the program, Steve Hernandez, is a recruiter for 10 years. I'm a recruiter for 20. So we brought 30 years of recruiting and really built a program around the idea of, okay, what's the real world like in terms of getting a job and making a transition in your career? I also have an active private practice, and I just recently left a role as director of coaching for an amazing community called Hire Club, 35,000 people, 50-person coaching team that I managed. Great stuff. But the book and the growth from the book is really caused me to step away. Should also mention I have a private practice too. You forgot that one too.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about your private practice?
So I work with people at every point in their career. Particularly people reach out to me. I'm in a state of transition that I want to go from where I'm at today to a new role. I want to make a career pivot. Sometimes that career pivot is small. I want to stay in my industry and I want to go from finance today to finance, but in another industry. Fine, I can help you with that. Sometimes people want to make big jumps. And I think you do a lot of this work as well. It's, today I'm in finance, tomorrow I want to be in product management, and I want to leave manufacturing as an industry and go into tech. Those big jumps are the ones that take longer, but a lot of success with that. So that's half of my practice. The other half is, what do you do when you get in? How do you succeed once you start? And that's a key. That's half of my practice. That's called, has a couple titles: executive coaching and also career success. It's the same thing. It's what do I do once I get in there to really, kick butt and take names and do really well. And so my practice is really at an even higher level. How do you have a successful career?
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I've two kind of follow-up questions there. One of them is this career pivot point, because right now we're seeing coming out of transitioning through this pandemic, that it's given people a lot of time to really reflect on what they want to do. And we're seeing a lot of people who are making some significant moves. And so from two perspectives here, if you would share, one perspective from the person who's changing careers, what are you seeing? And also too, from some of the I'm seeing all kinds of job postings and people who are really having a hard time finding people, which is an interesting time. And so I'd love to get your take on both of those areas.
Great. Those are two great questions, looking at this from both sides. I see both worlds. I should add that I was a recruiting leader in Silicon Valley during a lot of my years. So there's a lot of recruiters that I still stay in touch with. A lot of the Facebook recruiting team used to work for me. So I've really got an interesting pulse on that. It is a challenge right now. And I think, starting from the candidate or the job seeker perspective, requirements have changed. If you're a parent and you've been at home for 18 months with your children while they're in school or while they're even younger, now trying to manage the idea of going back into the office, it's not as easy as it was. And I think we're asking some really healthy questions. What is the quality of my life going to look like? And I think people are starting to go, okay, I might trade a little bit of money. I might trade a little bit of responsibility if I know that I can be home 3 days a week or 2 days a week or whatever makes sense. Because that being at home, as painful as it might have been in the early days, all of a sudden I'm watching my relationship with my family, my kids better. So I think people are really being a lot more holistic. I think that's healthy. On the other side, you're absolutely seeing this. I mean, it's been fascinating for me to watch the dates continue to slide back about when offices are, and I'll air quote it, reopening. I mean, again, you have as much of a pulse on this as I do. What in May it was, we're going to open in September. Mm-hmm. August it was, well, we're going to open in January. And now I've heard this week, I've heard April and I've heard February. And then I think Price Waterhouse came out and said, we're not opening at all. We're going to go to almost a complete work whichever offices you want, but they're telling 40,000 people, we'll work with you on whether you come in or not. That's healthy to me.
Yeah, healthy, that level of flexibility. I know we're seeing that, in my current work environment where we had some hardline kind of dates and we're fully in person, and the flexibility it really points to that quality of overall life, which I think, again, people had a lot of time to reflect over the last year and a half, coming on 2 years. And it's meeting the needs of the employers.
I also think there's been an interesting result from this. Productivity didn't go down. And let me just go there for a second. I had a client who worked, he was a pretty senior leader at a major bank in the West. And they were so rigid. The idea of even closing made them shake. But they did. But then he announced, I'm going to move to Denver for a year. And so he left the Bay Area and moved to Denver. He's a skier. This guy had responsibilities in the billions of dollars. He had a great year. His team had a great year. He also skied. There's some metrics there that are hard to deny.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you mentioned earlier, the first part of the pandemic, staying home, was really tough those first couple of weeks, and was kind of jarring and an adjustment. And the isolation was really tough for quite a few people. But again, if those who were able to push through and figure out the things that were important to them, whether it was family or health or whatever else, have been able to take big advantage of that. So that was that one transition out. And now we're talking about this transition in. And overall, as you're looking at people who are making job changes and career changes, I'm kind of curious about your take for what it looks like to be successful and having a successful transition into maybe either a new industry, or just a new job in general.
I think it's going back to a really simple idea. Can you solve their problems? We make job search into a massively complex mess. And first of all, there's only two things being evaluated in an interview, which is competence and team fit. And then from a job search, from a candidate perspective, you're evaluating those two things about them. Plus, you're trying to answer a question for yourself and for them as well. Can I help here? Again, it's like I said, we can make this as complicated as we want, but sometimes simple's better.
Absolutely. What a great way to break that down. Competence and team fit. I mean, that's one of the things when I'm coaching some of my staff members on recruitment processes for new employees. There's a baseline level of competence that we're looking for. But ideally, can I stand to be around this person potentially for 30 to 40 hours a week, right?
Yes.
There's social and emotional intelligence, et cetera. I've had some really competent people who are just bad team players, and it makes a huge difference in an organization. And so, again, for job seekers, I think it's important to consider how do you stand out in that measurement, but then also for recruiters, I think that's a nice way to break that down.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the book a little bit. What made you all decide to come up with the Job Search Manifesto?
It wasn't our idea initially to publish. So we've been doing this program, and it was Steve Hernandez, the director of career advancement at Wharton, and Steve and I now have become very good friends. But Steve's whole idea was, and it's such a great one, that, all of the programs that you see have never really gone into here's how recruiters do it. Here's the back end process. So he started on that, and we met. I did a little bit. He and I did some projects together, and then he said, I want to teach this. I'm careful with the word teach. You and I both know that we don't teach; we facilitate programs. So let me be clear about that. I'm not a professor or anything like that at all. But Steve really felt there was a need for a program that said, okay, let's show you the process. This is all the stuff we do as recruiters. Let's guide you through that process. If you understand that, you've got a leg up. So we started doing this at Wharton informally. Then it got more formal. And then it became extremely popular. It still is. And you and I both know in academics, they measure everything. Which, by the way, you knew this faster than I did. I did not know that until late in the game. I was just there having fun. And the next thing we found out was, could we scale this? Could we take this outside? So Wharton came to us and said, you need to write a book. Guys, this is working. So we started to write the book, but then we asked the question, can we generalize this? And so I started in the Hire Club community teaching an abbreviated version of the book, the same success rate. I mean, we're talking 90% plus success rate. I have to be a little careful with the data. It's somewhat proprietary, but it's worked. And so we realized, okay, so the book has a solid foundation. We can use it within Wharton. We can use it outside. I was doing the same principles. I'm literally giving out the content of the book to private clients. So we know it works, but it's the whole idea of learning how to figure out who your audience is. Some of the things we talked about what's my targets. The next thing is, how do I describe myself to those targets? What is my brand statement? What is the value I bring? And that's not a recitation of, okay, I did this, and I did this, and I did this. And I see you almost smiling with this. It's why, what does my experience and my passion bring that you guys need help with? That's a brand statement. And then we get into LinkedIn. Then we get into outreach, and we actually have 3 different outreach approaches. It shouldn't be just hey, I want a job. There's a lot more depth, a lot more with that. And then notice I didn't say resume. Now I'm saying resume. Resume is not your starting point of your job search. It's at the midpoint. If you do this ideally, because once you're engaged, once you know who your audience is, you're engaged with them. You identify specific roles, your resume then becomes a targeted marketing document. It is not your starting point. It is your midpoint. Then we talk through interviews. And then probably my favorite area is negotiation. Being a recruiter, I've hired, my teams and I have hired, over 1,000 people. I've done hundreds and hundreds of negotiations as a recruiting leader. And then now as a coach, again, hundreds and hundreds of being on the other side. And again, we make negotiation really complicated. And there's kind of a magic formula with that I love to work with. So
that's a great run through of that process. And again, you're really encouraging and challenging people to be almost strategic and to understand the basic ways of how this all goes. And in a sense, to simplify the process for them. But I'm sure that the content itself is rich. I'm curious, who's your target here? Because I'm thinking, I work with graduate students who are getting ready to get out of grad school, but I can imagine this could be a powerful book for a lot of people in any industry, regardless of education level and experience.
And that's what you hit on such a great point, Josh, that it is for everybody. You think about it this way: once you understand the rules of the game and the key components of what you have to do in the game, you can play. And that's our key point. So it really is, and that what I was saying that earlier, it's really about, okay, everybody, I've worked with everything from fresh grads to people that have been in a role for 25 years to people right in the middle. The fact that I work at Wharton, we've game tested this way outside of Wharton. We know it works, and we know it works with everybody. The funny thing is, the results of that have been the book is selling. We've been really happy with that.
Fantastic. So. That's great. So here's one area that I'm personally kind of really fascinated about, which is the negotiation piece. And I don't want to give away the secret sauce or anything like that, but it's one of those things when I work with people, some people are more willing to do it than others. It's almost like a sensitive conversation to be having in the first place when it comes to money. And I'm just kind of curious about even just a high level, your thought, or what if you're going to give somebody just a starter point of some mindset to consider in going into negotiating. I'd love to get your take on that.
By the way, I don't mind going into the secret sauce,
okay, because
I think it's important. Well, I'll tell you what, the mindset, you nailed it, collaboration. So let me tell you what we say in the book and what has worked for me as a recruiter and as a coach. Imagine a candidate walking into a first negotiation, and I want to, in a moment, define what that is, because that's important too. And saying, you know what, I want to be there. You guys want me there. I want to collaborate to make this happen. Do you know what happens when that happens? All the tension in the room goes away. And all of a sudden that recruiter, and by the way, that's 90% of the time you're going to be negotiating with a recruiter. That recruiter, really, you're saying, I want you to advocate for me. That statement creates that recruiter into an advocacy role. The recruiter already is. Now we're just being overt about it. And tension's gone. Now the recruiter is working with you, not antagonistically at you. We've had amazing results with this. I mean, I don't even want to throw numbers around, but numbers above $50,000 a year for mid-career people, non-executives, we've seen raises like that, and multiple times. The best part is it's doable by everybody. And where I learned that was I did that myself as a recruiter, because I could feel that tension. Somebody thinking, okay, Mike's coming into this call and he's just going to slam me against the wall. And no, I'd say that I could just feel them relax and we could get through it. And here's what's ironic. A lot of the people I hired became friends. That was important to me, that I'm hiring colleagues. So I don't want to be that way. So, and by the way, Steve was doing the same thing at Wharton. So we start doing this. And then as we start to write the book, started to dive into, okay, what are negotiation methodologies? Harvard has an entire program around negotiation, an entire group that focuses on negotiation, published the 5 types of negotiation. The number one most effective, collaboration. So it's documented, it's proven. And it creates this synergy, this aligned relationship versus, okay, we're in the octagon. It's MMA time. We're not there, and that's the secret sauce.
I think I 100% agree with you. It's interesting going into negotiations. I've gone through them several times throughout my career, and I think early on it was a fight. I went in with the mindset of they're going to try to screw me over. And I'm going to try to get as much as I can, because I'm definitely never going to get what I'm worth. But hopefully somehow we'll walk away with us feeling good. Sometimes it felt like, if I got something closer to what I was looking for, that employment relationship was strained. And it probably had more so to do with the attitude that I brought. And no doubt, everybody has responsibility in that relationship. But, if I'm bringing in an energy of this is going to be a fight and, you're not going to screw me over, I'm certain the hiring manager or the whoever is going to feel that as well. And, more recently, I think that change of mindset of saying like, hey, this is a business transaction. In the end, a few more $1,000s or more is not really going to hurt the organization. They're not worried about that. And really, I want to work for this organization and they want me to work with them. And so, hey, let's figure out how we can make this work. And that kind of collaboration was the right mindset. Absolutely.
Yeah. And the second part of that, again, like I said, I promised I'd dive into this a little bit deeper, because this is really important. People need to know this, is there are certain things that are easy to negotiate. There are certain things that are not. And 2 things that are not really negotiable are bonus programs and benefits. People want, and it's interesting. I've had senior leaders with 25 years of experience try to negotiate the benefits program. It's like, dude, not going to work. That they can't. So, but places you can negotiate are salary, are sign-on bonuses. Sign-on bonuses are different. If there's any kind of equity, RSUs, stock, whatever, those three areas of stock, of salary, and sign-on, those are absolutely in play, and can be obviously stock is if the company does is not entirely private and is not private equity, that's off the table. But when you start looking at base salary and sign-on comes into play. The easy way to describe sign-on is once you've got some experience under your belt, once you've got some really strong skills that they need, sign-on is on the table. I don't think people realize that. Part of the reason it's on the table is it comes out of a different finance bucket. People don't realize it does not. Most cases, it does not come out of the salary bucket. It's a one-time. There's funds set aside. By the way, can you tell I work for CFOs for a lot of years? And that's why that becomes more flexible.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much. And again, I'm certain that people will be able to get a lot out of the book and also potentially working with you in the future. I want to kind of step back a little bit and ask a little bit about kind of your background, kind of where you grew up, kind of your life path, your family background experience, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
So I had such a great life. I'm not done yet, but I mean, and thank you for asking. I think we've talked about this before. So originally grew up in Southern California, loved it, but also realized a lot of distractions. And, I could see myself I could see that 4-year degree taking 12 years. And so I said, I need to get away. I went to Seattle. My father passed away when I was young from leukemia. So I was pretty much raised as a teenager and adult by my mom. My mom was a nursing educator. So I was around medicine most of my life. And I initially started out in nursing, which, by the way, I'll date myself. I turned 64 in December. In the mid 70s, I leave Southern California to become a nurse. Let me tell you, that was interesting. It was also great. And I realized I got into it. I got into my senior year and realized, okay, this wasn't for me. There was a lot about it. I loved it. But I found a great program in health information systems, which was really medical records, hospital management or healthcare management. And I got a director role right out of college with the Shriners organization in Los Angeles. Did that, was great. Stayed in healthcare for a while. And then I found myself that there were opportunities in tech. I had moved back to Seattle, where I went to college. And then the next thing you know, I'm in one of the fastest growing tech companies in Seattle. We outgrew Microsoft. And so I was employee 40. This thing just exploded, did well, learned so many things, became a leader very early, and also recognized that, that kind of a lifestyle is an 80-hour-a-week lifestyle. And marriages collapse from that. So so as you're probably picking up, to tie this back to anybody listening, lots of transition, lots of change. And I'm proud of that. I took a year, I was literally paid to take a year sabbatical. I moved to Hawaii, rough life, which by the way, my name became interesting because people kept trying to make it Manoske. And I shocked them when I walked in a room and they realized, oh, there's this big white guy here. Didn't quite fit what they were thinking, which was by the way, Hawaii is a great experience if you want to understand truly to live in a multicultural society. It's wonderful. I came back to Silicone Valley. I had met my now wife of 23 years. And we started over. And I'm the father of one of the youngest venture capitalists in Silicon Valley. He became one at 24. He's done tremendous things and is really becoming a leader there now. But I pivoted into recruiting because I was at that point a single dad with custody, and had to stay home and really had to really shift my lifestyle. So a lot of what we're seeing right now, I understand because I had to live it. Became a recruiter, shocked a lot of people that I was going that direction. Glad I did. And then about a decade ago, tacked on, went through a graduate coaching program, as you mentioned at the top, the Hudson Institute. And that's right when Wharton showed up. So, it's not a straight line. And I'm proud of some of the weirdness in it. It's made me a better coach, but it also makes me understand a lot of transition, a lot of building frameworks, a lot of kind of trusting yourself. So it isn't that I just coach this stuff. I've lived it.
What a fantastic journey that you're on. And
Oh, thank you.
I can really also appreciate the idea of stepping away from 80 hours a week and, having that time to clear your head and to really figure out, you had in essence, your own version before the pandemic of what's really important to me, and quality of life conversations.
That's a great way to describe it. Thank you. You're right. And it was not easy. I'll tell you, the pressure at that point, I'm in my mid-30s and, I step away to Hawaii. I'll never forget, I got a note from my mom going, huh? What are you doing here? But I'm glad I did. It really gave me a path and a recognition that, there were things I could do that weren't on the list. The other thing about it, and I think it's important to reflect into today, is I have made career changes 2 and 3 year cycles. The national, and I think you've seen the Bureau of Labor Statistics, people change roles every 4.2 years nationally. And when you anchor that against, okay, well, there's government employees in there and there's people in finance who finance people are often don't leave because they're so well paid. It's shorter now. And we don't have a lifetime commitment to an employer.
I think is fantastic, which is great.
I do too. I agree with you completely.
Those words really hit heavy, I think, with this overall conversation, especially at this unique time of kind of our life history and in the employment space. As I've transitioned into a new role recently, that quality of life has been so critical to me, and to the point of even saying I won't respond to emails, after a certain time or text messages, and no matter what the chaos is, just because I really want my work to be enjoyable. Like I want pleasure at work. I know there's stress, and I know that there's some fights occasionally and some challenges, but generally speaking, overall, I want it to be one of the things that I really enjoy, and I spend so much time of my time of the week there that I intentionally every day say this is going to be a good experience. I'm going to do something good. I'm going to help somebody out today, and nice. That's the focus. There's no interest in burning out or going through a burnout. At least my version of burnout again. So,
well, I noticed you said again.
Yes.
How intentional was your change? Because I think what you're saying goes to the heart of what so many of your listeners are really thinking about. So how did you make this intentional?
It was internal. It was all internal. Like the work started inside, it just, and little baby steps. They say consistency in time, changes everything. You get big changes over that, but you have to be willing to be patient and be consistent. And so for me, it was, taking care of myself and really not worrying about the career anymore. Starting with myself, whether it was health or whether it was friends or whatever that is. And then when it came to work, just focusing on helping people and that being the only goal. I knew the money would take care of itself. I knew that the promotions and opportunities would take care of itself. But I knew that what I would value, what would be really enjoyable, was helping people. And so, my commitment every day is I ask with my own personal relationships that I have spiritually, I ask that I can be of service and I can help hopefully at least one person. And I do that consistently, and I've done it for the last 5 years. And it's made such a change in my my emotional and mental state, and I've been rewarded for it.
Isn't that interesting? There's 2 concepts that you're touching on that I think are really important. One is leader as servant, or servant leadership. It's something that in my executive coaching side, I'm doing a lot of work in, because it's when you start to find those people who are saying, this is a quote, dude, I make a ton of money. But by the way, it's with that tone, like, dude, I make a ton of money, but I'm also working these hours and I have no life outside of this. Sometimes for short commitments, if you're really passionate about that thing, that might make sense for 6 months. It does not make sense long-term. And the other thing is when it's all inward. when it's all me, that's debilitating over time. I don't care how good you are, it's not going to work. And when I brought the concept of servant leadership to people, when I know it's right, they start talking like you just did. Oh yeah, this lights, and that's joyful. That's when this starts to get fun. And servant leadership doesn't, is, you can make it spiritual if you want. It's a business concept. You can take it as deep as you want, but the whole concept is I work in service of others. I'm pragmatic about it. I'm going to be honest about it. And I have a positive ego about myself. I'm confident, but it's like that, just slightly different lens in front of your
Absolutely.
eyes. And it's amazing.
That's great. So we're going to take a brief break here, Mike, and we're going to get into the big question.
Okay.
All right. As you know, this is the Best Worst Thing podcast, where we like to ask our guests to share a story of either personal or professional setback. And the questions are, what was the situation? How did you get through it? And then what are some lessons that you learned along the way that you want the listeners to take away? So Mike, what's your best worst thing?
I've been thinking about this for several days, and I found myself a little bit of butterflies around this, Josh, just to let you know. I think my best worst thing was when and it goes back to what we've been talking about. So I worked at this amazing tech company. Like I said, outgrew Microsoft. A movie was made about this company, and not a positive movie.
Okay.
I won't name the title of the movie, but you can go and dig into IMDb and find out that I worked for the Michael Douglas character, and the Demi Moore character was actually trying to hire me on her team. You'll figure it out pretty quickly. It's about a tech company. It is actually it's based on a true litigation story that I had nothing to do with, but made us pretty public. I killed myself there. I worked several times a 36-hour day, and I had a sleeping bag under my credenza in my office.
Oh,
yeah, my marriage blew up. What a surprise! But I worked for a variety of leaders, and half of my leaders were awful. And ironically, those are the ones that I spent the most hours at, because I kept trying to please them. There was no way. They were so unhappy themselves. I could have bought them a Maserati and they would not have been happy. And I burned out. But interestingly enough, I had built up enough credibility that burnout triggered everything else in my life. And what it triggered was HR coming to me saying, we're starting a sabbatical program. You've been here long enough. You've been nominated. And this was, I literally call it my Top Gun moment at the end of the Top Gun movie, where they came and said, you can do anything you want for a year and we'll pay you. And I said, cool, I want to build this product. It was an internal analysis tool. And I said, I can, and I was enough of an engineer I could build it. I said, I want to go build this. They said, great. And I said, and I want to go do it in Hawaii. And they went, fine. And I did. And that was that came out of burnout. That came out of really damaging my life. Also building what for many years was a very bad habit of overworking myself, being chronic with that. But the best thing out of that was the entire life shift it did. Getting away, being in Hawaii, writing code between body surfing days. Yeah, rough life. I even did some other work over there, which was fascinating. Very, very different things than I'd done before. But I realized I could, again, I'm now a single dad. I came back. My son didn't want to live there, and came here and started over. But that was one of those big pivot transition points in my life. Was that moment of saying, yes, I'm going to leave, and I'm going to take the sabbatical.
Mike, your story is so timely. I mean, the countless people right now who are going through what they are going through, right? And it's their version of it. And yours is burnout, yours is, a lot of things, but so many people this is going to resonate with so many people. That's incredible. It's incredible.
It's really interesting. You've probably created more clarity for me around this than I think I've had. And I do this all day, but I don't reflect on my own story into that until you've done this. Yes, right. But you're right. It was also done at a time, this is the mid to late 90s. This is not a time when you stepped out of your career.
No.
And I took tons of flack about this. I'm fine with the flack now. One of my favorite, this work moments was right when I got back to Silicon Valley. I got into Silicon Valley. I went for an interview, top company, guy's reading my resume. Gets up and goes, "Do you mind if I close the door?" I said, "No, he's close the door." Sits down and he goes, "You've been in Hawaii for a year?" I said, "On a sabbatical?" I said, "Yeah, paid sabbatical." He goes, puts the paper down, kind of leans forward and looks around and goes, "How did you do it?" That's, but I think you're capturing that here, Josh. And I think you're bringing that up. You're not going to do it the way I did it. Well, if you can, God bless you, go for it. But, you can almost do a shift in your career. If you keep an eye on the economics, if you change anything. I'm not saying suddenly start eating top ramen for the rest of your life, but get off the career ladder. Start looking more holistically. Start finding all of the elements in your life that do have value, and do more of the things that have value. Do less of the things that don't have value. There, we solved it, didn't we? There
it is. Powerful message. There's going to be so many things. I personally connect with in your story. The trap of trying to please bad leaders. To just overworking yourself and neglecting yourself and people around you. Because you think you're doing the right thing, their intentions are well, but that reset, that hard reset, that ability to reconsider is so huge, and it's a story that people hopefully will resonate with and listen to, and as they're considering what they're going through right now. So, Mike, what's the best way for people to follow you, find you, maybe get access to the book?
Well, first of all, thank you for that. The book is called The Job Search Manifesto. Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's showing up in bookstores, but probably the easiest way to order online, either of those places. Again, The Job Search Manifesto. My website is mikecoach.com, MIKE coach.com. Love to have you on a newsletter. We're really about getting good ideas out there. This is not hey, buy my book. As you can probably tell from what we talked about today. It's really about taking control. My mission, and I didn't say this until now, so having so much fun with the other things. My mission is to make job search a skill set. It says right on the cover. Steve and I put that on the cover to really emphasize the idea of, okay, we want to give people power. So if you do want to step away, if you do want to shrink things down a little bit, you can go, okay, I know the process enough that I can do this. And I want to stress, this is a workbook. This is based on a program we lead. So every chapter has you working through steps in this, and you don't have to go from page 1 to, page 276. You can actually dive in at any section of this. We've laid this out. So if you do feel like, okay, I am in interviews, want to update my resume, it's there. But go to LinkedIn before your resume. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox on that. But MikeCoach.com. I'm also got a Facebook page, Job Search Manifesto, and Mike Coach page. Would love to have you there as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for spending time with me this afternoon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Best Worst Thing podcast. I'm your host, Josh Walewa. Music is produced by Josh One. You can follow him at Boomnote on Instagram and Twitter, and Josh One on Spotify. Our episodes are edited by Cool Jets Audio and Visual. You can follow them at CoolJetsAV on Instagram. Our marketing is designed by Francesca Daniels. You can find her at FrankandKitty24 on Instagram. And our overall design is by Inspired Design with Ryan Daniels. You can find them at getinspired.design on Instagram. Thank you for listening to The Best Worst Thing.
This one's for the good times and this one's for the bad. This one's for the day that was the best we ever had. This one's for my good friends and this one's for my foes. The ones who get up on your skin and do